Hi, I'm Shan Wu with a Under Color of Law hot take on the new filing by Special Counsel Jack Smith. So there's a lot of cliches about October surprises, and as I just wrote in the Daily Beast, Jack Smith sort of put the word surprise back in October surprise. What is important about this filing? Well, it lays out in summary form and with a lot of factual specifics, some of which are new, we'll talk about that, just exactly what it is that former President Trump was up to. It shows that even before the election results, well before the election itself, he was already talking about what to do to essentially steal the election, that he planned to challenge it. He had his enablers put together these ideas of these fake electoral slates, and they were all conspiring to do that. That's all laid out here. Then comes the actual election. They put into place, as spelled out, these kinds of plans. Everyone keeps telling him that there's no basis for his lawsuits, and he's lost. And there are some really important quotes from him on Air Force One, saying to his family, it doesn't matter whether he wins or loses, you just got to fight anyway. What does that really mean? I mean, it's nice to fight hard. What that really means is he doesn't care about the results. He just wants to cheat to make the results happen. Then it also details what happened on January 6th, where, of course, he basically encouraged this mob to attack the Capitol. And there was one thing was a little bit surprising, which is we all know how little he cared about Pence's being in danger, his vice president being in danger. But when he was told that they just had to move the vice president, his vice president, to a secure location, his reaction is, so what? And, you know, it really shows the way that Trump is only focused on himself. It's not so much he's wishing Pence harm, he just doesn't care because it's not helpful to him. It's a very transactional kind of mentality. Why was this filing done? Because you're hearing a lot from Trump's mouth about how this was a wrong time to do it. The Justice Department's prohibition on taking overt steps within 60 or 90 days, whatever it is, we can talk about that too. Well, the reason it was filed now is not because it's a new investigation or an overt step. It was filed because of the Supreme Court's decision giving Trump and all future presidents immunity. It was a terrible decision. Chief Justice Roberts wrote it. I mean, it reads in such a convoluted manner, and it says this is a factual bound determination, and they kicked the case back to the district court. That's why this had to be filed, because they had to try to weave their way through this and figure out what the heck to do with it. And really, it created a maze of legal hurdles, and Roberts constructed a world in which presidents are completely immune for core official acts. For example, telling your attorney general to commit a crime, that's a core official act, totally protected because you're allowed to talk to your attorney general about things. And then there's a second category, which is presumed to be immune because the president's doing things that look official, but maybe it's not. Maybe the government can overcome that. They can rebut the presumption. That's the part that's heavily fact-bound. And then there is some third category that Roberts recognizes where if the president's acting in a completely private capacity, like being a candidate for president, not acting as president, those things could be prosecuted. So basically what Roberts created out of whole air, as many people have criticized it before, is really just, it's like a simulation world. I think the word is simulacrum. And it's like a fake judicial opinion. That's a tough word. I'll check the pronunciation right now.
Simulacrum.
And in this little simulation of a world, Roberts comes up with the idea of you need fact-bound decisions requiring the prosecution and trial judge to go through all of these facts, even before you get to trial, to figure out whether or not the case can actually be tried or not. So Smith had to lay all of this out, and there are some redactions in it, but not that many, and Judge Chutkan very quickly released it. And what's really striking about it is that some of this, particularly the emphasis on what Vice President Pence was going through, was already known to us. A little bit came out in the January 6th hearings. Some of it came out in Pence's book. But there's some other ones that have come out probably from grand jury testimony and witness testimony. And that's really quite historic. I mean, the idea that there was a vice president who had to testify about this. And we see the evolution of the pressure that Trump put on Pence. Initially, Pence kind of wants to go along with things, says, okay, I'll take a look at the voter fraud cases. Eventually, you see in this pleading that Pence moved on to try to get Trump to step down gracefully. He complimented Trump, saying that Trump gave a dying political party new life. Eventually, he kind of answers Trump's question of what do we do if we can't win these legal cases by saying, you ought to take a bow. I mean, just gracefully go off the stage. Obviously, Trump didn't do that. As to the famous rally on the ellipsis, Smith's team does a great job breaking that down to show how that's entirely privately funded, first of all. And what's really great about this point, because if it's private, of course, the president can't have immunity for it, when Trump's encouraging people to march on the Capitol to basically attack it, what's really great about the evidence that Smith points out here is it's government evidence from that day. The U.S. Secret Service categorized the event as a campaign event, not an official event. The White House photographer had it categorized as a campaign event, not an official event. And even the White House staff has what has got to be a great rarity for Trump. They were complying with the Hatch Act. Hatch Act, you can't use your official office to do partisan things. They were actually using their personal cell phones, personal messaging accounts to help prepare for this rally because they knew it was not an official act. That's going to be really important evidence to convince the judge, and ultimately courts of appeals, probably goes back to the Supreme Court, that these were private actions. Now, there's a lot of pundits have already reacted to this. You've kind of got two sides of this, right? There's one side that says that this is not going to make any difference. People's minds are already made up. There's another side, Trump in particular, saying this is outrageous. They're doing this within, 35 days of the election. It's the election interference. Let me address that last part because there's this policy in DOJ we've heard a lot about that the department does not like to take overt steps in an investigation or criminal case within 60 days of the election. Now, if you go back to James Comey and what he did with the Hillary Clinton investigation, announcing so close to the election, we're kind of reopening this, that's a great example of an overt step. This is really not an overt step because not only is the investigation ongoing, the entire case has been indicted, they're before a trial judge. It's really a judicial process that's going on. They're not really doing something new in the case or making some announcement. This is all evidence they already gathered. So really that whole 60-day prohibition is sort of irrelevant here. Bigger sense, that whole 60-day prohibition is just ridiculous. I mean, if you got something this serious, you don't wait, you don't let the political calendar affect you, which honestly, in my opinion, I feel that Attorney General Garland has done too much of that here. There's been too much consciousness about the political calendar. And so for those who say that this doesn't really matter, Smith's filing, because the case is not going to be tried for ages, which is true. If Trump wins, it'll never be tried. But it does matter because the way our system works is there's only a few thousand voters in about 7 swing states that are going to be the deciding margin in who becomes the next president. If that few thousand people can be swayed by some of this new information, it makes them pay more attention to what Trump did, makes them think, whatever we think about policy issues, this is a bad person, he shouldn't be the president. That's really important. That's worth paying attention to. And we should be very skeptical of people who are saying this doesn't matter, nothing matters, basically, minds are already made up. The other audience that counts here is someday, if Trump loses, there's going to be 12 men and women impaneled as a criminal jury in the District of Columbia, and they're going to hear this evidence. They'll be the audience for the evidence to hold Donald J. Trump accountable. That's it for now. Good to talk to you. And please keep those comments and replies coming. I try to get to all of them, and it's really helpful. Talk to you soon.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.